I believe we're live.
You did it.
We did it.
Look at us.
We're streaming and dreaming.
Streaming
This is
and
our
dreaming.
first. Is this our first stream together? Technically, I guess we
I was
hopped
on-
into a stream randomly together once, right?
I did
Got bots.
got bots. Yeah,
Of
yeah.
course,
Got
Scott's
bots.
bots, which I need to figure out what to do with. We got a nice shout out today from PJ about Scott's bots.
I just
which
saw
was
that.
Very exciting.
I just saw that, yeah. But I think official stream where it's just like you and me, this is definitely our first one.
This is so exciting. This is maybe the well, we know it's the first of many because we're going to be streaming and dreaming pretty soon, starting next week.
Oh, I totally forgot about that.
We have to plug it. We'll have to plug it once more people come. But for anybody watching this back later, starting next week, I'll drop a sensible link in the chat too.
Oh, let's keep plugging.
We're gonna be doing a new series. Here, while I find the link, you explain the series, Gwen.
Yeah, so it's a four-part series at the moment, all of next month. Once a week, we're going to dive into topics such as, related to putting your resume together, cover letter. If you're sort of in the stage where you're applying to gigs and you want to get your stuff together, you'll probably find some good info in there. It's called How Can I Help, which is a play on Chloe's favorite.
My favorite. I just realized I need to update one of the links here, but here is the registration page for the reactor if anybody wants to check that out. Yes, based on Clippy, of course.
The one and
only. Should we show a little exclusive for the two people tuned in right now, which honestly may be just me in two different tabs? And I'll tweet on social media in a second here, but we can show a little sneak preview of our Canva designs for the people tuned in right now. We got one. We went down to one. Okay, no Canva.
What's going on?
Here, I'll tweet out that we are live because social media, as a cloud advocate, it's important to share what you're doing across multiple channels. And hey, Clippy! Yeah. Oh, I should. That's what I forgot. I forgot to change my Twitch Go Live notification. I'll do that right now. So many moving pieces, Gwen, to going live.
Yeah, sometimes I'm just like, whatever happens. Let's just do it. Let's just go for it.
But then I forget to update my stream credentials, and then now the description says we're playing with Power BI and Squirrel data. Come say hi. I'll say ask us anything.
Yeah, today we're talking advocacy, cloud advocacy.
Advocate. There we go.
What's going on, everybody? Chat. Let us know where you're checking in from. What are you up to? What's your week been like? It's Thursday. Can you believe that?
It's Thursday, friends. I can't. I kind of measure ever since the Panera started.
Panasonic.
I have like these anchors in my life, right? And one of them is 90 Day Fiance. One is like my podcast that I listen to that are recaps on 90 Day Fiance. So I'm like, oh, it's Thursday. I have a new Patreon episode of a 90 Day Fiance recap. Or like, oh, my favorite Real Housewives franchise is going to be doing a new episode today. Hello, but also hell. Yes.
Chicago, Raleigh, Dallas. Very cool. Chloe, you're in. Do we want to like give a little description of ourselves? Maybe a little.
Yeah. I'm finding the video so I can to tweet it out here.
Okay. I'm in New York, and I've been especially in New York for 1 month. Can you believe that?
That's so exciting.
Today. And it's funny because I was thinking about how the city it's like so packed with people, but it's so easy to feel alone. I don't want to get into like sad girl hours,
sure.
But it's a nice little, not every month it feels like a nice little time to reflect on being here and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm based in New York City. If anyone's here around the area in the East Coast, let me know. Hello from El Salvador. Very cool. We got Chicago. Hello, but also hell. Hey, Clippy. We got some Clippy fans.
I mean, I honestly, so I think the official Microsoft account tweeted today, reply with your first like software of Microsoft that you use? And I just replied with a Clippy emoji because truly, I think that was my introduction to Microsoft was having to, well, we did a lot of Mavis Beacon and a lot of like, educational games at my public elementary school. But I remember our teacher had to turn off the Clippy function in the settings because it was too distracting to us while we wrote our essays on probably animals or something. Hello from Sacramento. I'm from
That's
Sacramento,
so hip. I
Dennis.
was about to say, Chloe.
That's my home base. Ladybird was about me. Ooh, I love Sac. Miss Sac. I might try to go there soon and visit my dad. Okay, I just tweeted. I'm going to tweet the video too to share that out.
Someone says, interested to find out what I need to ask myself to see if cloud advocacy is something I might be interested in. We
Ooh,
could
yeah.
probably provide some insight into that. Chloe, you've been an advocate for how long?
Oh my gosh. I think 3 years, 4 years. I've lost track at this point because the pandemic has me. I don't even know how old I am right now. Yeah, I think at least 3 years. I'm coming up on an anniversary in December, I want to
Wow.
say. But yeah, I mean, we should also mention that cloud advocacy is the name for what we call developer advocacy at Microsoft. But in the industry, like industry term wise, if you're looking for a job doing similar stuff to what we do,
Mhm.
I've been a junior developer evangelist. I've been a developer evangelist, dev advocate, developer advocate. Oh my goodness, what are the other names for it? I would say advocacy or, evangelism. I don't really
DevRel,
like the
developer
name
relations.
evangelist because
I don't
people are
either. I was
like,
about to ask you how you feel about that word.
yeah, because everybody thinks like televangelist or something,
Mhm.
especially non-technical people. They're like, oh, are you in a cult? What is this? Uh, so I prefer the title developer advocate because
Mhm.
I also think it describes the job a lot more. The
Definitely.
way that I like to describe developer advocacy is marketers don't really know how to talk to engineers, and engineers don't really know how to do marketing. So being a developer advocate is sort of that liaison between the two, like almost
Mhm.
being a translator, so to speak. And yeah, I went straight into advocacy. What about you, Gwen? What
I
was your
didn't
background before?
I didn't know that. Oh, so anyway, I was gonna say, so I've been a cloud advocate at Microsoft for 3 months. So I'm pretty fresh, pretty new. And though Chloe and I we're at the same company and we have similar roles, we do somewhat different things. Like
Yes.
we're both advocates, but and we can dive into that a little deeper. Prior to this, I was a training architect, and then prior to that, I was a cloud engineer, sysadmin, help desk, retail. So I sort of like worked my way up through like the tech, I guess, ladder and
What
things like that.
retail? I worked in retail so much.
I worked at an Apple store, probably the craziest place that
Ooh.
you could, because people get so nuts over their phones. You
Oh,
have
I'm
no
sure.
idea.
Oh, I have to go to an Apple store soon with my dad, and I am not looking forward to the type of customer that we will be there shopping for
Yeah.
a computer solution for him. But yeah, I was gonna say I worked in retail, but it was not as exciting. It was Disney Store, J. Crew. Never worked at Claire's, surprisingly enough. Oh my goodness, Sephora. I worked at a new store opening for a Sephora. The Disney store closed, and while they were remodeling it into a Sephora, I worked at the J. Crew across from it. Just very diverse resume coming into this industry.
I like that. I like that. Microsoft has such positive and uplifting titles. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I would say, yeah. So I moved into advocacy because of like my YouTube channel,
Mhm.
and so when I was a cloud engineer, so engineering for me was like once I hit engineer like an engineer, I'm like that's gonna be the best. Like that's what I want with life. That's where I want to be. And then it was great, and it's not that I didn't enjoy it, but like I started making these YouTube videos, right? And I realized like wow, I enjoy this a lot more. I like being in the middle, like you mentioned, like being in the middle of like the people who build the things, the people who use the things, and the people who sort of market and they put the things out there. I like being smack dab there in the middle, have a little bit of because I have like a creative side to me. And then a bunch of stuff happened, and a year later, here I am.
So cool. So wait, at what point of your like journey did you start making videos? Like what were you doing around that time?
So I was I think I'd been maybe like a half a year into my cloud engineering gig, and I worked at a place that used Azure for absolutely everything, and
Oh,
some
wow.
they had on-premise stuff and like so hybrid, and then some Azure stuff. And I was, since it was a small team and you had to wear like many hats, I was the only sort of like dedicated cloud person.
Mm-hmm.
And like the only person who would like help would be my boss sometimes, but I was just like googling everything, really figuring, piecing these things together.
Binging it, you mean? It's a Microsoft video. Binging it.
I,
I'm
I've
just
been
kidding.
I've been binging away, right? So yeah. So then I started creating videos because it was like a way of documenting just for myself later on, just because we had
Yeah.
like a small team. I didn't really have people to bounce ideas off of. And then yeah, I like shared on Reddit, on Twitter, and then eventually people like at Microsoft like found it on social media. And yeah, then I became an Azure MVP. I met Scott Hanselman. I got like a couple of
Wow.
did a couple of like Microsoft things, events, and yeah, when this role opened up, I was like, that's all me.
Oh my gosh. I didn't that is so cool because I recently went down a little YouTube rabbit hole of Gwen. I did a little stalking because I was like, tell me more. What are these videos? And I saw that one with Scott Hanselman, and I was like,
Mhm.
oh wow, this is like before that was before you worked here, right?
Yeah, that was last summer.
Interesting. So my path here was very different because I hadn't touched Azure very much at all before I joined Microsoft. My path into DevRel, so I did a boot camp. I went to Hackbright. Shout out to any Hackbrighters out there. Oh, also I drew a heart on my nail, and I'm very proud of doing it freehand. So I just want to show that to the audience at home. But yeah, I did Hackbright, and when you do a boot camp, typically there's this kind of final project that you work on, and when it was time to do our presentations for demo night, where we'd kind of like present to the prospective, Uber would be there and Airbnb and all these big startups, little startups and stuff.
Mhm.
All of the women in my cohort were like looking at me like I was crazy because they're like, "You don't look nervous. What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me? This is like the best, easiest part. Like building the app was hard. Talking
Mhm.
about it's easy, but I come from a theater background. I worked in tech in so basically my degree is in theater performance with an emphasis in musicals. And after I graduated, I needed like a Monday through Friday 9 to 5 job to support myself while I did theater nights and weekends, which really was
Mhm.
just kind of a very expensive hobby. Because they don't tell you this in theater school, but they don't pay you a lot of money to do shows, like a couple $100 stipend here and there. So really, my day job wasn't something that I considered a career. It was something that just supported me while I did this theater thing that I got my
Mhm.
degree in. So I had this really weird Superman complex because by day I was, oh my gosh, you guys, I did everything. I worked in retail in college. I worked as a summer camp instructor. I was a children's birthday party entertainer, like literally wearing like the big heads and dressing up as a princess and stuff. I worked as an after school program coordinator. Then once I got a taste of the startup world, so my first tech job ever was at Yelp. I don't even know if I've told you this, Gwen.
I didn't know this.
Oh my God. So I graduated from college, and the most coveted job that you could get as a performer out of college, because you can't really get like healthcare benefits when you do a show. You do that show for like 3 to 4 months maybe, and
Mhm.
it's typically, unless you're a union actor, you're not getting paid like a living wage for it. So the dream was to get this job. Oh my God, at Kaiser Permanente, which is a healthcare. It's a hospital, a doctor's office here,
Mhm.
because there was this children's, it still exists because I got an email about auditions recently. It's a children's touring company that goes to the different elementary schools and middle schools and does like little skits like Nightmare on Puberty Street and like eat your veggies and like how to stay healthy. And I looked very young. I know that I look very, youthful. I'm actually 32, and they would cast adults to play children in these shows, and it had healthcare, it had benefits like
So that was the
Kaiser.
goal.
Well, because I was like, I'm not going to move to Broadway, like I'm not going to move to New York because I wasn't a good enough dancer to like make it on Broadway. My
Mhm.
goal was always I'll do some regional show that'll end up in New York someday maybe, or I'll do a touring production or something like that.
Okay.
So I realized pretty quickly that to get benefits I need like a big girl job, and I applied for a job at Yelp through Craigslist, if you can believe it. This was like back in 2011.
Okay.
And it was oh my gosh, what was the name of it? An account manager. I had no idea what that meant. So I interview, I get the job because I wasn't like a Yelp Elite member, but this was like before Yelp was really popular. This pre-IPO. And I had a pretty, substantial Yelp account where I'd reviewed a lot of stuff. So they're like, this girl knows the product. And it turns out an account manager is a salesperson. And I was not good at this job, y'all. Like these roles had a pretty high turnover rate at Yelp at the time, and they would just
Yeah.
like go through candidates all the time. But they're like, it'll be easy. You read from a script. And we were selling not ads, but we were like selling like premium accounts. So
Mhm.
like you would call and you would be like, hey, I'd like to talk to you about your Yelp account. But this was 2011. So when you called people about their Yelp account, they're like, that's illegal. You can't make a website on my behalf. And I'm like, no, it's like a review site. And then, they get really angry because they'd have like bad reviews because they were like not a good review. Anyway, it was a whole ordeal. But in that job, Gwen, I was like, oh my God, like this deli meat is free. Like I'd never worked at a tech company before in San Francisco, and there was like free Crystal Geyser sparkling water. There was free,
Snacks.
like you open and I was like, wait a second, so we can like make a sandwich with this deli meat? And everyone was looking at me crazy, like, yeah, girl, like live your truth. And I was like, as an actress, you're lucky if you get a slice of pizza at rehearsal, And I was like, oh my God, like I'm gonna work in, I was like, a pool table? And they're like, yeah, no one uses it. And I'm like, oh my God, a booze pool? So once I discovered like this tech thing in the Bay Area is like, really, they got some money. It's cool. After that ended up working as like an office manager, a recruiter. I was an executive assistant. I was a virtual assistant. So like I worked in a bunch of startups. I worked at Pax and Jewel Labs, like the vape company. Oh my goodness, I worked so many different jobs. So I did everything but engineering. And yeah, so I really got to see all pieces of the business, literally even cleaned the bathrooms, like of tech. And I'm here to say that, I've had a love-hate relationship with LaCroix. I used to hate LaCroix. I loaded it in the fridge for hours a day on end. Now I love LaCroix. Coconut's my favorite flavor. Oh, here's a good question. Where are all my foosball tables in NYC? Are there any in SF? I doubt it. Yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing about those perks that it's like having a pool. Like you're like, I want a pool. And then you get a pool and you like never go in your pool. It's very much like, I feel like as an office manager, I probably saw people use the pool table or foosball table like once every 2 months because you get used to it. Like, but I just stumbled. I mean, I didn't stumble. I very strategically went after DevRel roles because after I had that experience at my boot camp where I was like, oh, like talking about this is easy. Like I love doing that. I was like, interesting. Like people in tech don't like public speaking. Not all of them anyway. A majority of engineers do not like to, explain. They like to explain deeply technical concepts, but having that stage presence and being able to explain it in a fun, entertaining, personable manner. And I saw that a lot with like, I think I went to like a product release announcement for a pretty major tech company here. And I missed the announcement because the person who was announcing it was like so scared to be on stage. And that's where I really made this connection of like, oh, I have this really, like my tech skills are here, but my public speaking skills are up here. So that's really how I sold myself. Because I went a very non-traditional route. Like I was basically in the car with my boyfriend going to a wedding during my boot camp. And I was like, that part of your job where you give talks, is that a job? So my boyfriend is a GDE and is an Android dev. And he was like, actually, yeah, like you should talk to Monica and Bear and all these other people. And he introduced me to a bunch of women who are doing DevRel. And I was like, ooh, that's it. That's what I want to do. So typically I always say, do as I say, not as I do. I always advise people that I mentor to like get a couple years in the trenches, like get some experience as a developer. But also my situation was a little bit different because I was just like, I know that I want to sit in this like unique marketing and engineering space, and now I get to work with students, which is lovely because I love explaining beginner, like getting started 101 content to students. And so we have very different paths. You actually had some Azure experience before you came in, so you had a leg up on me. When I started, I was like playing around with all the different things. And I was like, what piece of Azure like do I want to be advocating? And like, got to try my hand in cognitive services a little bit and like do some different stuff. But that's so cool. So you actually like were using Azure in real life.
Yeah, and that ties into a question that I get a lot about advocacy is like how technical do you get and like what like technical skills is required. And it's interesting because like you, I guess you with going to the boot camp, you sort of like leveled up your tech skills, and then with me doing YouTube, I sort of leveled up my on camera and my presence, like that stage presence kind of thing, right? So
Yeah.
which both are required for the field. Let's I think we could dive into like how technical we are, or like how hands on we get with like Azure itself, or like programming and stuff like that. I can start like I still think I program in a couple times a week, depending on like what kind of sessions I'm prepping. So like I did it last week, the week before that. This entire month for me has been focused on developer, like Azure developer tools and services. So it's been the entire week of like, deploying infrastructure, doing demos and things like that. I always like to tell people that you still need the technical skill set because you're building these things. It's just like the life cycle or the lifespan of what you're building is like it's for the demo, and then after that you're typically not like deploying fixes or like adding new features or things like that. Whereas in like an engineering gig, if you're like working on a website or something like that, once it's deployed, you still have to like there's fixes you got to do, there's maintenance, there's got things that you got to add and things like that, right? But you're still like expected to know how to program, how to read code, how to speak like to a technical audience, because you're also working with your engineering team, because there's you got to talk about the products, got to figure things out too. So it's still very technical, but there's also the creative side, right? They're like being on camera, doing streams, I have never done an in-person event though. I know you have a lot more experience in that, so like I'll let you talk about that. But that's also like the actual like speaking about what you're doing is
Yeah.
like as important.
Yeah. And I would say, I got very lucky because my first two jobs were pretty deeply technical, like advocate roles. I worked at a Docker CI/CD company. Shout out to CodeFresh, who gave me my first job, and
Oh, cool.
learned a lot about, oh my goodness, too much about Kubernetes and containers and Docker and all of that fun stuff. Spent a bunch of time in that community, in that space, and then moved over to error reporting and metrics, working over at Sentry for a while. So that role, like, it's really interesting because I feel like developer advocate roles can differ from each company and even each team that you work on. Even internally at Microsoft, I see differences in that.
Definitely.
But like, for example, my first role, I was doing a lot of webinars and started to give some talks and stuff. In my second role that I had at Sentry, I built up an in-person meetup, a community, and was doing video content. And then, here, especially during the pandemic, lots of video content here as well. But yeah, I would say, I would say 85 to 90% of the interviews that I did for advocate roles involved some sort of whiteboarding or walking through, like, it's pretty, it depends on where you're interviewing, and it depends on the role, of course, and if you're going to be managing a team or what that looks like. But yeah, having technical ability, I think, there's a pretty big difference, I would say, between like a community manager
Yeah.
and like a developer advocate. Like, it's a
Hmm.
little bit more demo hands-on, I would say, with an advocate, but your mileage will vary at each company. Like the title kind of stays the same, but the duties are different. And I have a
That
very difficult time answering the question, what does a typical day look like? Because every day
It
is
is it
totally
is
different.
it is totally different. Like today I spent a lot more time doing student focused things than I've done my entire time here. Here's a question that could probably help us dive into like what our day-to-days look like. Chloe,
Yeah.
what Azure service or product are you advocating?
Great question. So I work on the next generation experiences team with Gwen.
Hmm.
And my focus lately has been Power BI, M365, like all of that fun Power Platform stuff. So all that PL 900 certification specifically geared towards students and new learners. So a lot of 101 content. But yeah, like, oh my goodness, I'm so okay. Did you watch our stream yesterday, Gwen? I forgot the squirrel stream. This is a good example of
I caught
like
a little bit of
something.
it, yeah.
Okay, so yesterday, here's an example. So I've been doing this weekly series with the Reactor. The Microsoft Reactor is a physical space, but also an online community that we have where we do a bunch of live streams and events. And we did the 8th episode of our series. Oh my gosh, Tuesday. It's Thursday. On Tuesday. I'll drop a link in there in the chat if you want to check it out later. But basically, this series started as beginner AI ML content. And then this month, it was AI and ML content, but with low code, no code solutions, which is really what I work on. Like, I'm I can code. I'm very technical, but I work on low code, no code solutions, and making content around that for students. So,
Mhm.
in Tuesday's stream this week, we were playing with Power BI, which I've consumed. Like I've had a lot of PMs like build things out with Power BI to visualize metrics and data, but never built one for myself.
Yeah.
And on the stream on Tuesday, I needed a data set to like populate the Power BI, dashboard, and I used squirrel census data from the 2018 squirrel census, which is a real thing. You can look it up. And learned like on this stream with Ornella how to put together a Power BI dashboard. But then today, Ornella and I were, doing a little retro on like, how putting all our data together in a doc. And I realized I can use Power BI to visualize our YouTube like analytics. So
You can do it.
today, oh yes, I wish I'm not on my work computer. Otherwise I would share it. It's beautiful. But it was really cool. I got to like just drag and drop in, and now I have like I did a pie chart of our likes and our dislikes. The dislikes was very small, just a little sliver of the pie. But it's really cool because I'm finding now, typically when I was working with things like cognitive services or, I've dabbled a bunch of different pieces of Azure,
Mhm.
especially Azure Functions, and I'm obsessed with bots. You can check out my link tree and my Twitter bio. Check out all of my, oh my gosh, the bot that we made. Gwen and I made Scott's bots, which is Michael Scott bot, Brittany bot, Shania bot, Bon Jovi bot, Ariana Grande bot, Mariah Carey bot. So I've had different technical focuses while I've worked here, but I've really enjoyed, like I was kind of hesitant about low code, no code. I was like, I don't know, like I'm a technical person. But oh my goodness, like I'm very new to this space, so I'm truly like building the plane as I fly it while I make beginner content around that, which is kind of great. Like to make beginner content as a true beginner has given me a lot of insight into like what does this look like for a new person learning how to use these low code no code solutions. But I've been having so much fun. Like I've been building like really ridiculous bots and fun things with it. But yeah, I made a whole dashboard today of like YouTube analytics. So like when people ask me what's the day in the life, like truly changes every single day, which is something I really like about the role. And I think when I was finishing up my boot camp, I was like, I don't know, like, it wasn't like, is this what I want to be doing coding? It was more just like, oh, I really enjoy like the social aspect of this. And I really enjoy creating content. I wish that was my full-time job. And yeah, my wish came true, much like Gwen's wish. Like, it sounds like you were making those videos for fun, right? And now you get to like do your fun for work.
I always tell everyone, it's like I was doing advocacy for free for a year before getting paid by Microsoft to do the same thing, which is insane. You bring up like a lot of good points in terms of like for advocacy, we really have a lot of freedom in terms of like we want to create a series around this. We have to now go and learn that stuff, right? Because
Yeah.
we're gonna have to be in front of everyone and talking about these kind of things,
And
and
I
it's
actually
great.
learn it better when I teach it. So like
Absolutely.
it's kind of a hack for myself too.
Yeah, and yeah. So for example, I have some cloud admin, some Spanish stuff coming soon too, where I'm very excited about. But like all this stuff, I got to spend time prepping and learning, getting hands on, and inside of Azure portal or coding wherever it might be. Yeah, it's definitely like I like the pace of it. I like that I'm not stuck on a single project for like a whole year or anything like that, or like I have to be assigned to something specific. Though we do have certain teams or I guess certain people who are more specific to like technologies and things like that. But I think us on our side, we're more a little bit more audience focused, like your students, and then I'm a regional cloud advocate. So for me, it's like I got to represent New York City and
I
give
was
New
a
York City
regional
what they
cloud
want.
advocate when I started. So
Oh, cool! I didn't know that.
and I might technically still be in the system, but when I started, I was a regional cloud advocate for the SF reactor.
Oh,
So
sweet.
that was a big part of my job. It was like putting live events in there, and it was fun because like especially like joining the team new because I wasn't assigned to a specific technology. I could kind of dabble in a bunch of different things, which is why I was able to like create some whimsical like Mario Kart astrology stuff because like literally it was just me being like, ooh, what can I do with this? Like how can I tweak this to be fun?
Mhm.
Oh, thank you, Mark NCA. That's so kind. I'm so glad that you're enjoying it because these are just conversations that Gwen and I have like offline and we're like, we should do this.
We
No,
should
I'm
do
just
this. Let's do it. Here's a good one for you. Is low code, no code the future?
Okay, I have a answer for this. So here's the thing. I truly believe, and this comes from someone who didn't learn to code until she was 26. Like truly thought that engineers hammered together a computer with like glue and nails. Like I didn't. I was like they would roll in with like big headphones in at 11ish. You know, like my view as an engineer was very different before. But what I think is really cool about low code no code is. Well, two things. I think everybody should learn how to code. Like, I hope that this is something that's being added to curriculum. Like, I wish that this is something that I would have been exposed to in my childhood. So I would
Mhm.
know that this is a field that I could go into. I think accessibility plays a lot into this, as far as like making sure that, you know, most of my friends who had exposure to computer science either had a parent or an adult in their life who showed them how cool it was, or they went to a private school maybe and they had advanced computer science classes. But the
Mhm.
extent of my computer knowledge was truly, well, I will say I was a bit of a hacker, I put that in quotes, was able to get around AOL parental controls with my parents. And when cast lists would come out. So like I had a rough idea of how the internet worked, but when they used to announce the casts for a show, so be like Peter Pan the musical or something, I
Mhm.
figured out that I could edit the URL and figure out the cast list before anyone else if I like figured out like what
Look at
the
you.
thing was. And so people were like, "You're a hacker," and I'm like, "Yeah," and I'm like, pretty cool. But to answer your question, Nikita, I think that it is because I think about when I was an office manager, there were so many, or even an executive assistant, there are so many like low code, no code solutions that had I known about them would have automated a bunch of my jobs. So business card reader through Azure, I think is a great example. The amount of business cards that I had to manually enter as an executive assistant. I also gave a talk recently about like what I wish I knew then that I know now about low code, no code solutions. And one of them, when I worked in retail, I worked at the Disney store, and hopefully you guys know what a magic towel is. You can Google it. They're like these little like towels that they squish down. You can get them at like Disneyland, the Disney store, RIP. And you put them in water and they expand into like little face towel when you put them in the bathtub. And there was a night, if you've ever worked in retail, inventory night is huge. You like
Mhm.
stay overnight and you have to like count all your inventory and your stock. And at the Disney store, Gwen, it's a nightmare because you have to count every plush. That's kind of fun. You can like hug the plush, put them back. But every single magic towel, every single tumbler, every single snow globe has a specific SKU.
Mhm.
And there was a night where I had to sit in the back of the Disney store with my friend Owen, shout out to Owen, wherever you are. And we were delirious because it was 3 a.m. and there must have been thousands of magic towels that we had to painstakingly go through, write by hand what the SKU was. Because, like, the Cinderella one had a different SKU. The Cinderella with a mouse had a different SKU. Mulan had a different SKU. Like, every magic towel design had a different SKU. And we literally had thousands of them. So, for things like that, I always think, like, gosh, if I had had the knowledge, and who knows what, you know, what the AI ML was back in 2008 when I was working there, but now I could just take a picture of them and like use machine learning to like count how many of each one there are, right?
Yeah.
And but that really requires a knowledge of how that stuff works. And the
Mhm.
biggest disconnect that I see, and I see this a lot when I work with, you know, theaters or arts organizations or nonprofits, is a lot of people don't know what solutions are available to them. So, like, for example, I think that when you go to the theater, all programs should be on the phone. I don't think we should have paper programs. And this isn't
Yeah.
because I'm like, you know, a millennial or anything. It's because as an actress, there were times where I wanted to like update my bio, or there would be a typo, or like also save the planet, like don't kill more trees, right? So I see a lot of like low code, no code solutions being the future, like chatbot services. I think Octane AI, like Azure has a lot of great services, but Octane AI is this great service that like helps celebrities and like people of note build out bots and conversation flows so like
Mhm.
they can communicate like one to many to their fans. And I think that is, I do think that low code, no code is the future. I just think it's going to be a lot easier for people to create their own apps. I think it's going to be a lot easier for folks to just like, but even, you know, us as very technical people, you know, like as I mentioned before, I built a Power BI dashboard today in like 5 minutes. If I built that from scratch, like that's really like where I see it being useful. Like, you know, you can build a Twitter bot, you can build like how many times have you worked as an engineer and someone like taps you on the shoulder from marketing, they're like, hey, can you build us a Slack bot that like sends us a notification when this happens? Like now you can just be like, hey, use Logic apps or use, Power Apps to do that. So I think I believe that low code is the future. Truly.
I was talking to Ornella today at the office hours, and I had told her that I because we were talking about how Power BI can clean your data, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had told her like, oh, like a couple of years ago when I was a cloud engineer, I had to put together like this Azure Functions kind of thing that would clean the data, but it was like super janky, and also it was like super error prone, but it worked.
Yeah.
But like now it's like I could have just like, put a couple of connectors together and had the data go straight from the email from Outlook straight into Power BI, and it would have taken care of it. And then I would have had like, because you can like schedule, she was telling me, what was it called? Like Power Apps or something like that you could schedule the data to refresh as often as needed and things like that. And I'm like, if that was something that I was aware of back then, I would have totally done it. Because one thing I think a lot of it's like the culture in engineering. It's like if you're not coding, you're sort of less of an engineer, or it's like, the more you code, the more lines you code, the more of an engineer you are, things like that. I do not think that way. Like if I can save time and use these things that already exist, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. My time's more important in other places. But I can definitely see that mindset of like, oh, like I need to code it for, to prove my worth or something like that.
The best like example of this I can give is when I was building out my personal website a while ago, I wanted to build a chat bot that just would have like a very simple conversation flow that would be like, hi, like, welcome to my website. What can I help you with? And I thought in my mind when I first started, because I'm like, I'm an engineer, I'm going to build this. But then you start to realize like all of these gotchas, right? You're like, oh, interesting. So I need to like save all of the questions to a file. So I know in the future, if my bot doesn't have an answer to that question, that I like know how to answer that. There was also like, oh, I need to throw an error or have a statement message that I do for like, so there's all these little pieces that like, once I started building it, I was just like, I'm done. Like, this is like, I maybe got like 3 conversation flows in, and then I realized like, this is a nightmare to build. But then now when I use these like low code, no code solutions to build chatbots, I'm like, thank goodness I have like Q&A bot that like uploads all of like, I think it's something like hundreds of thousands different responses for like different things that you can ask a bot. So when I explain these things to people, I'm just like, yeah, you can build that from scratch. Like, I'll see you in 2 weeks, or you can do it this way and like give this to the person that needs it right away. Oh, hi Brandon. Chloe has helped teach me how many possibilities there are in no code low code land. That makes me so happy. Brandon and I used to do musicals together.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
We actually, the last show that I did, and the last show that Brendan and I did, was How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, which I think about every day as a person who's a businessman now. But yeah, it's truly like, I think that there's so many ways that we could be enabling like what we consider non-technical people.
I was
in
about
the
to say that the team,
like,
your team of people that can now build solutions, it's almost like everybody, right? Would you rather have like a small, like your solutions only be able to build by like a small, very specific like subset of your team, or enable your entire team to do it?
Well, and that's something that, I think where we're missing just in the industry in general, education around this is, we know that these solutions exist, but like, we need to make sure that the people who could really use them know. And that's really like the audience that I try to go after is like office managers. Like, oh my goodness, like office managers can be so empowered by a lot of these tools, like recruiters. Like, there's so many tedious tasks in a lot of these admin roles that we just have to educate people around using. And I think there's a lot of people who are like, no, I don't want my job taken away by AI ML. And I'm like, no, it's not taking it away. It's just like, you don't have to listen to a podcast anymore and like do like 5 hours of data entry. Like, I'm saving you time, I promise.
So about to bring up this comment, no need for web or automation devs if low code, no code is the future. That's actually not true. Like, because you got to think like all these solutions are built by people, right?
Yeah.
Who are building them, right? It's just we're enabling more people to build even more things, right? There's always going to be space for programmers and devs in any kind of area. It's just going to be like, it's going to be different later on next year. Who knows what comes up right now? Like, I don't know, blockchain, Ethereum, and things like that, right? It's just going to keep evolving. But the person who has sort of like because at the end of the day, like developers, programmers, engineers, whatever you want to call it, we troubleshoot things, and we sort of think in logical ways. Like that type of mindset and type of roles are always going to exist. It's just going to be a little different. And just because low code or no code comes into play doesn't mean that you get rid of that.
And what makes me particularly excited about low code, no code is I think there's this sort of like, there's an assumption that, okay, if we have these solutions, like who's the use case for this, right? And I think that when you really think about it, not like something we have to remember as engineers, and I think maybe this is top of mind for me because I wasn't an engineer for so long, is not everybody wants to learn how to code. Like it's not
That's fair.
interesting to some people. Like they don't
Mhm.
want to learn Python and JavaScript or whatever it may be, Ruby.
Same.
And they don't have the time. Like they and I think what's really cool and the coolest thing that I see from low code, no code, and I even get this sometimes as like a compliment about the demos and the work that I do, is my background and my like expertise is completely non-traditional. So oftentimes when I do a demo, they're like, how did you think of this? And I'm like, this is literally based off my previous experience as like a non-engineer. And what makes me particularly excited about low code, no code is seeing people who previously were like, because as engineers, we're always thinking through the solution a very particular way. But
Yeah.
like, take for example, like a fashion designer who's
Mhm.
like, I don't want to take the time to learn how to code. However, I do need to like spin up an app to do blah blah blah. I think April Vogan Code, if you're not following April on Twitter, you should. She did this really awesome AR app recently that combined her love of like fashion, interior design, all of this stuff,
Mhm.
where and you don't even need a device for it. You can use your phone to take an item and put it in your apartment and see what it looks like. And I think there's all of these use cases that we're
Mhm.
not even thinking of that once these people get their hands on it, like here, throw it someone in the chat, throw like a random like a toilet, okay? Like let's say a plumber doesn't have the time or energy or resources to learn how to code. But what if they could like this kind of gross, take a picture of the back of the toilet and like know what the situation is, or even
Yeah.
do like digital twins with the toilet? I don't know if that's something someone would want to do. But there's all of these like use cases that I think us as engineers don't even think about. Like I'm trying to think of a random one as an office manager, but like snacks get low, snack inventory, like using images for that. Like I think there's even, what if there's a ballerina out there who wants to be able to like build an app to like measure, how many ballet shoes she goes through. I don't know, that's not a good example, but there's so many things that we simply don't like. That's the most exciting part about working in this field for me, or this part of Azure for me, is there's so many cool apps. Like we had these students who built an attendance taking app for their teacher
Mhm.
because they found that they were losing a lot of time during the class to like taking attendance, and this like automatically like used a database from Teams, was able to check who attended for how long,
Fantastic.
uploaded that to a thing. And I'm like, there are probably so many things like that. Like, what if there's like a pool cleaner out there who like, wants to build an app but doesn't have the time or energy to learn how to code? Like, I'm sure there's a solution that they could build with it. So,
I play on a Sunday soccer league, and they needed to put together like a health check-in thing.
mhm.
Basically, just email everyone a form who's going to play that day, and like you have to like just check to make sure you don't have COVID, like the symptoms. Like, do you have symptoms? Yes, no, kind of thing. And then they put it together using, I can't remember what they used, but yeah, they were telling me, and I was like, yeah, you can throw that together in like an hour. And like,
Yeah,
yeah, you didn't need to
yeah.
make a custom, you didn't need .NET development or anything like that,
Well,
right?
that's a great example because think about all the theaters, like I think we always have to, as engineers, and maybe I'm more cognizant of this because like I wasn't an engineer for so long, think about the people who don't know how to code or don't even know where to begin with like thinking about how to build these things. Like theaters are having to check if people are vaccinated, or even restaurants, like small
Hmm.
businesses. So being
Hmm.
able to build that is like huge for them. Like they don't have, because imagine a nonprofit trying to hire an engineer to like build something like that. Forget about it. Like they're not going to be able to afford that. Mike is here. Hello, Mike.
We've faced some hesitancy from our dev team around low code, no code. Not sure if it's a pride sort of thing or a job security issue. I think a lot of them feel like they can do it better themselves. Well, this is an interesting argument because I'm like, all right, so low code, no code services are offered by like these massive companies, like think Microsoft Azure, think AWS, Amazon AWS, and then Google GCP. Like they all have their own suite, and there's tons and tons of other companies, and they have massive engineering teams behind these solutions. And
Yeah.
you get SLAs and you get support and all the kinds of things. Do you really think that you, as an individual, can build something better than an entire engineering team who like sort of do this as a dedicated thing? Not to saying that you can't. I'm just saying like if you're that good, you could probably put your time to better use in rebuilding something that already exists.
Yeah, I mean, like the way that I think about it is, okay, I can spend like multiple hours building, or no, multiple days probably building a chatbot from scratch, or I can like whip one up in like less than 30 minutes. Like that's really where I see the value in it. But I think really like beyond us, we need to think about like who does this enable to like build. Of course, like you're not going to make the next Airbnb probably with a
Mhm.
low code no code app, but it can resolve some really, like I'm trying to think of some interesting use cases here. Like I'm just like looking around my apartment, but like everything from like, you have a plant store and you want to check the health of your plants. Like I mean there's so many things. I'm of course blanking on like every.
Booking reservations, I think, is like an easiest thing, easy example.
Yeah.
Like checking in restaurants, or just it's like things like that. Like even like a static website for like serving a menu or something like that, right?
Oh
All
yeah.
those things are like so doable. Tracking shoe wear through. Oh, there you go.
Mm,
Here's an interesting comment. I think low code, no code works for small startups or prototyping your product. Oh, prototypes. That's also, it's like
yes.
if you want to put something out there, instead of like putting all your resources and money into like a full on big solution, we prototype it up in low code
Yeah.
to market, to present your market audience what problem you're trying to solve by building enterprise solutions. Yeah, there you go. That's
Yeah.
also for prototyping. I think that's also a fantastic approach to use to leverage low code, no code. Another thing I like is oftentimes I'll hear people who are like, "Oh, I'm not technical enough to get into engineering," but then you introduce them to something like low code, no code, and it's not just low code. Is that like you're not technical? You are. You still have to think through steps. You still have to piece together these solutions, and it's sort of like a first step into like, oh, well, now I realize that I can actually do this. Let me take the next step to actually learn a programming language. Well, you're already in the mindset of like piecing together these solutions. Like it's a nice like your first step into the actual field and space, and then you can take it as far as you want, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was for the ballet shoe thing. Emoji didn't come through. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think there's yeah, but that's the thing though. And if anybody in the chat has any recommendations for like specific communities, throw them at me. But like my whole thing is, we work a lot with our Microsoft student ambassadors, and
Hmm.
we've got some that are excited about that. We work a lot with university students, but really what I'm interested in as far as like getting low code, no code, just even people thinking about it are honestly not even what we would consider, I hate this word, but technical people, right?
Hmm.
Like it's truly, I mean, who among us as an engineer has not had someone reach out and be like, I have a great idea for an app? Like, okay, great. Here's a low code, no code way for you to do it. But I think even beyond that, like, I think what's really important education wise and something that we as a culture, like globally, need to work on is help create space for people who need these solutions who don't even know they exist. So, an example of this, I think I told Gwen about this when we first met, was I've always wanted, I'm a huge, huge fan of drag, the art of drag. And
Hmm.
I think there's so many ways that performers and drag queens could be incorporating digital currency tech like into interactive parts of their costume. Like I even think about theater, right? Like
Right.
the most like technical things that I've seen in theater beyond, lights are obviously tech and sound and all of that is maybe like projections on a screen. But like think about a show you can go to in the future where like you can interact with what's going on the stage. And I think the only reason we haven't seen that yet is we don't have a lot of creative performing arts people working in tech, which is why anytime one of my, theater friends is like, I want to learn to code, I'm like, join us, please. Like, because I think that's really the beauty and the joy of people from non-traditional backgrounds entering this space is being able to provide their perspective and provide solutions for things. But like, here's an example. I think a lot about, so like I've been performing, musicals my whole life. Don't do them a lot now, but my grandma has never been able to see me in a musical live. And why is that? Oh, because she physically has to be in this space. But
Hmm.
like I think there's some really interesting conversations to be had as technology grows and as like knowledge of technology grows of like how do we create like a VR experience where people can like pay for tickets virtually and see shows. Like I think that's really the exciting part. but you got to find the people to educate. So yeah, it makes me so excited when people like discover these tools, because it's like, oh crap, I can do this thing that I thought I would have to like pay some engineer like hundreds of thousands of dollars for.
Yeah.
Great.
At the end of the day, it's enabling more people. And I think we all agree that tech is what's going to change and improve, like not only present day, future, and all that kind of stuff. And the more we get it in the hands of everyone, the more solutions, the more diversity in solutions we're going to get, all that kind of good stuff.
I
So
mean,
it's
how powerful did you feel, Glenn? I mean, maybe I'm aging myself a bit here. When you like figured out how to customize your live journal CSS or your MySpace. I mean, like
MySpace.
truly, I that's what I always tell people who are like new to it. I was like, "Did you ever play with Neopets? Did you ever like?" Because I think that's like sometimes people don't know that they're coding. Like, and I think like the more education that we get out there, I'm like, actually, yeah, you can build things, the better. Ooh, this is a great comment from
This is
Mike.
a great one. I think we're in a great space where technology is no longer the blocker to solutions. The only limit now is knowledge and imagination. That's
Yeah.
true. And the more we get people with different knowledge, different imagination, and enable them with these tools, the better we're all going to be.
Yeah, and that's something I think about a lot. Like, I am a white woman living in the San Francisco Bay Area, and didn't learn about engineering or what it was until I was 25 or 26. Now, I don't know what
Mhm.
that says about me. I mean, I had two artists for parents, and like my whole community and circle of friends were performing artists. But like, I think about that a lot. Like, how do we make sure that like Chloe, Chloe now, so like 5-year-old Chloe using Microsoft Word to write her essay, in remote learning, sees people, sees people who look and act and sound like her in this industry and know that this is a path that she can go into, but
Mhm.
B, like find the fun parts of that. Like, how do you make this stuff exciting and entertaining for, a younger audience? And yeah, I think about that a lot of just like, why did it take me? I was good at computers. Like, I've been on computers my whole life. How do we make sure that people are getting not only educated on like, hey, this is a field that you can go into, but also like, hey, this is something cool and fun that you can actually build some really cool solutions with.
To tie this back to advocacy, I think that's a strong reason why we both got into the roles that we are in. It's like we've seen terrible technical content. We've seen
Yes, we have. And
and
terrible live talks as well.
yeah, we've seen it, we've been through it, and sort of we've found ways to teach it to ourselves. And now our goal is to like, how do we enable others to sort of learn as well, but in more approachable ways and more sort of like friendlier and like, hey, you do belong, come and hang out, spend an hour with us and kind of learn these things. Just to tie it back to advocacy as to why we're in the space, and maybe because someone at the beginning had asked like, oh, I'd like to know like sort of which questions to ask myself to see if this is a role that I would want to be in.
Yes,
Chloe, do
yes.
you feel like who do you think this role is for? Let me ask you that. Who's the
Yeah.
ideal candidate for advocacy?
So I always kind of explain advocacy, and keep in mind, like I said before, like not all advocate roles or evangelist roles or whatever the job title is are created equally. I always explained my job when I first started as an extroverted engineer, which is ironic because I'm actually an ambivert, which means I'm a mix of both. But I think it's really good for people who love to teach others. They enjoy building community and being a part of the community. I
Mhm.
think a big part of my job is being sort of a voice for the community, and also, and that doesn't even just come from like, oh, I tweet a lot. It's also like, oh, I also have the knowledge and connection within Microsoft to make change. So if I get feedback, product feedback on something, if I notice that something is difficult to use, I can be that voice of the developer internally to the people. But I think really, you know, there's sort of this common trope in working in evangelism where it's like, oh, I don't get to code as much, and you really do have to like Gwen said, you have to carve out the time weekly to like make sure that you're getting your hands dirty with code often,
Mhm.
whatever that may be, whatever stuff you want to be working on the side. But I think it's a really great role for people who enjoy creating content, and that can
Mhm.
be. We should also mention content can be blogs, videos, tutorials,
Streams,
documentation,
audio.
streams, podcasts. Yeah, like there's so many forms of and this is a really interesting, the two of us here, because I feel like people get into developer advocacy in two ways. They're either
Mhm.
crazy like me and they go straight into it, or they kind of like wake up one day and they're like, wait, crap, I've been doing all this advocacy work and I'm not getting paid for it. Like it just kind of naturally happens, because like
Yeah.
we're all passionate about the stuff that we work on. And my boyfriend is an Android dev, and he used to do a lot of like talks and community work and travel a lot and speak at conferences. And I think that was a hobby for his, that was a passion. But I think for people who really like that to be like the sort of breadth of their work, it's a great role. I really feel in a lot of ways, and maybe just because I work with students, like it's a teacher role in a way. At least the
Yeah.
kind of advocacy that I do is a lot of like tutorials and teaching concepts and doing workshops. And I really enjoy helping people connect the dots, like on why should I use this? How do I use it? And like, what can I do with this? So if you find that you really enjoy, and again, this can be documentation, right? Like you can totally, there's so many ways to make content. It's a very broad spectrum of content you can make. But if you enjoy that kind of stuff, I would say, yeah, look into it. What about you, Glenn?
I like to call myself an internet teacher.
Yes. I like that.
Absolutely, and I definitely have a joy for explaining things in my own way, and obviously, there's learning aspect to it too. I guess if you have a creative side to you, like if you find yourself that, I don't know, you already make videos somehow, or you make some sort of content somehow, but you also enjoy the technical aspect to it, and you want to find something that's a good mix. Advocacy, I believe, would be a nice fit for you. Ambivert. I also just learned ambivert. I didn't know that was a
Oh
thing.
my goodness.
Ambivert, I
I
just learned
used
a
to
new word.
give a talk called IoT for Ambiverts, which used Azure functions so I had this flick smart button that when you clicked it once, it would text your phone and you get a text from your fake boyfriend. And when you held it down, you'd get a call from your fake boyfriend. And in this talk, I would explain, I'm an ambivert, which means when back in the before times when I used to do a lot of conferences, I would give my talk and I would socially just be drained. Like I have no problem going on stage talking in front of thousands of people, but like afterwards at the after party, when it comes to be like 6 o'clock, I'm like, oh gosh, I've been around people too much, and you just need to go to my hotel room and like watch 90 Day Fiance under the covers with like my McDonald's. And that really was what I really leaned into. Once I learned what an ambivert was, I was like, oh, this talk is called IoT for ambiverts, because like how do you avoid awkward social situations, build an IoT solution. But yeah, ambiverts are, I would say it's like extroverts who need to recharge a little bit. So like I have no problem, I can be the life of the party, but like inside I'm just like, help me, I need to leave this event. I have extreme social anxiety, if you can believe it. Yeah, ambiverts rule the world. Little recharge people.
Here's a interesting question that I don't know if you would have an answer to, but let's give it a try. Which role is best for introverts?
Ooh, like within advocacy or in general?
Yeah, I guess you need a little bit more info of like, are you talking about like tech in general or like advocacy? One thing I will say that no matter which role you're in, you're gonna have some sort of communication that you'll have to do, whether that be meetings or like meetings to a technical audience, to a non-technical audience, or just like with your colleague or things like that. There's always going to be some aspect of like you're going to have to be able to talk to people, right? No matter what role you're in. I don't really think there's one place that you can just sit and like code all day or build all day and just ignore the world. I don't think so.
From a non-technical perspective, I feel like when I worked in customer support, I forgot to mention this one. I worked in customer support for a video game company called Kixeye, where I did VIP customer support, which means whales, which means people who spend over $30,000 on the game. And a lot of my job was just like pre-formatted responses, sending them an email. Didn't do a lot of talking in that role, but was it fulfilling?
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Like data entry, I guess. A little bit
I see.
introverted.
I can party for one night, but need a week to recover.
Yeah, I feel that. That's me as well, Mike. I just don't want to talk too much.
In cloud, maybe. I just don't want to talk too much. And then I think software dev, I think anything that is like an engineering gig then might be a good role, because the majority of your time will be spent building your things. And if you become comfortable with your team, then that might be less of a stressor for you. But like, I don't think there's any role where you can completely eliminate having to talk to or be social with other people. Because also think about like, a lot of times, we're so quick to talk about like skill sets on your resume and these bullet points and your projects on your resume, but the people skills are just as important and will also get you get you places, right? So like
Yeah.
developing those things is important. And I'm not saying you have to completely change your personality or anything like that, but just keep in mind that like you got to be someone who other people want to work with, who other people want to talk to, because that's what gets you included on these projects that sort of help you, progress and things like that, right?
And that's something that I communicate a lot to our Microsoft student ambassadors and really just anybody that I mentor or any student that I work with is that you may not enjoy public speaking. You may not enjoy making presentations. You may not doing that. Like a great example of this is all of the content I just created for the Imagine Cup on like how to make the perfect pitch, how to like present your project. You can be the best engineer in the world, right? Like you can build the most amazing app, but if you don't know how to communicate that to a group of investors or even to a group that you're
Yes.
leading, like you're
Yes.
not going to get anywhere with your application. And I
Mhm.
think that's something that I very quickly realized. And again, I have a heightened awareness of this because y'all, I used to work in the performing arts. I have seen some bad musicals. Okay. I have seen some terrible plays. And even some of the worst plays and musicals that I've seen haven't compared to some bad technical talks that I've seen. And I say this because if it's not like you got to get on stage and like be crazy and quirky and like you don't have to do what I do. However, it's the example that I love to give is, oh my god, what is his name? There's a character on SNL that Will Forte plays called Tim Calhoun, and I literally have a video of this in the presentation I give on public speaking where he goes, "Huh, I'm Tim Calhoun." And it's like the difference between hearing a talk like that versus like, "Hi, I'm Tim Calhoun." Like you listen to it differently. And I think the number one piece of advice that I give to students is like it behooves you, even if you don't like public speaking, take an improv class, take a public speaking class, because if you cannot even just communicate to your manager or to your leadership, or
Yeah.
you're in a hackathon and you need to share your winning project idea, like if you are unable to express the excitement and enthusiasm that drove you to build that's going to be very problematic in being able to like have success with your product. So
Absolutely. If you can't
yeah,
vouch or you can't make your own case, no one else is going to do it for you, right?
yeah,
Here's a
absolutely.
great comment. Introverts make great technical writers.
Oh yeah, I was thinking that too, Mike. Like documentation, technical writing. Of course, you do have to interact with like
Seth's here.
people within your organization, but if you're looking for less like forward-facing stuff, that's a great way to be a part of the community. Twilio hires a lot of really great technical writers, as do we here at Microsoft.
Definitely.
Hi, Seth. Seth's
100%.
here. Yeah. Guac Girl, you're really gonna like an app that I'm building with Ornella soon. We're using AI. Is it AI Builder? No, we're using a piece of the we're using low code, no code solutions to build an application that you'll be able to take a picture of an avocado with. Feature request for guacamole coming soon, and it'll tell you if your avocado is ripe or not.
Love
No,
it.
good soft skills, just don't want to talk too much. That's fair. I feel that way often too. Yeah,
especially
all right.
like what is they call it? Like small talk,
Oh my god.
like water cooler talk.
I miss in-person events. I will say that. I really love like live feedback, like applause, laughter, like the performing artist in me loves
Yeah.
that. However, gotta say, love that when we finish this stream, I click end and I don't have to talk to anybody after.
Get to recharge.
I can
No, I totally feel
hydrate,
you.
go for a walk. That's one thing because again, I'm an ambivert. I need to recharge afterwards. So that I will say is has been one perk of the panini is my ambivert self can just like shut down. My boyfriend's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm just like, "I just finished a stream. I just need to like
I'm that
process."
way too. Like I can be energized and everything on a stream, but I need to just chill, play a video game or something like that after before I can dive back into work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely need to recharge. But
I
that
never
doesn't
let anybody schedule a meeting right after a stream. I'm like, "No, I'm out for the day."
absolutely not. No. How dare you?
It's a lot of like emotional energy, like being like I think I was explaining this either to my boyfriend or a friend recently. Like I used to do musicals. Like I used to tap dance on stage, be out of breath when I came off stage. Even then I could like, kind of I get out of my costume, everything like that. Like there was a whole process of coming down from it. But I think I exert more energy on a live stream than I do in a musical. Because it's like I'm not playing a character, I'm being me, and I'm having to like pay attention and do multiple things at once. So like I truly feel like I've run a marathon after I've done a live stream.
That's a great point that you bring up in terms of like advocacy. It works well when you're being your authentic self.
Yes.
Because people can like pick up, like if you're playing like a character or sort of like trying to sell something that you're really not interested in, or you're trying to teach about something that you're not enjoying, like the audience picks it up, and it's just like
Well,
it's
and
not going
that
to work out
comes
for
back
anyone.
to what we were talking about earlier about how like marketers don't know how to talk to engineers. Like you can
Exactly.
totally tell the difference between like hashtag DevOps, hashtag AIML, like people don't talk like that, like hashtag synergy. Like I think a really interesting example, and I'm still not sure if this was a troll or not. Gwen, did you see this Travis CI tweet that went out recently? I think this was
No,
last
what
week.
is
Oh my
this?
gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So Travis CI, I'll see if I can like find a visual of it. They turned off comments on it because people were trolling them. My boyfriend showed this to me. Travis CI did this tweet that was like, graphic design is my passion, crazy font. That's if you have two monitors, Gwen, you should bring it up.
Let's see.
It
Travis CI.
Yeah, go to their or I can even share the link and you can share it because I'm only on one monitor right now. But it was very clear that either an intern or someone in marketing or someone had tweeted this because it was like common shortcuts and acronyms for like technical phrases, and it was like all it's not content that an engineer is looking to check out.
Mhm.
Like all the comments were like, "Where's your developer advocate at?" And like, "Who made this?" And like, "Are you okay?" Here, I'll try to find it and then I'll share. Oh yeah,
I
here we go.
have this here.
That
So
one right there, right there, right there.
this,
Click on that. Yeah. So like,
what is this? Software
yeah.
acronyms we know and love in the biz. A FTP file of respect. What?
So like, this is cute. Like whoever made this, good job. It made me laugh and I appreciate it. But like, this is not authentic to me. Like first of all, why? And second of all, like the font, and third of all, like who is this for? Like what is the audience for this? The people who use Travis CI are very deeply technical people. Do I think they need these shortcuts? No. It's very cool if they're trying to educate people beyond that and expand their brand, but like this is stuff that I think about, right? Like I've worked
Mhm.
at startups before. That here's an example. I used to work at a company, I won't name them and shame them, but they were like, we want to send out onboarding emails for our product that like every day. And I was like, don't do that. Don't send a marketing like getting started email every day. They're going to unsubscribe. Like, have you worked with an engineer before? They'll figure out like, so there's certain conversations that need to be had like with marketing and engineering and with engineering and marketing of like, how do we make this authentic? How do we make this like, do we really need this tooltip that says edit the field here? Like, this is a tool for engineers. So yeah, that's something that I think about a lot is like, people say, oh, why do we need a cloud advocate? Like our engineers know what they're doing. I'm like, yeah, they do, but like, do they know how to film something? Do they know what their audience is? Like, there's a lot of things that I think we I love the graphic design is my passion meme, clearly. Like it's a meme that I use all the time. But have you ever seen an engineer try to make marketing materials? It's very cute. It's like,
No,
oh, you
I
thought these
haven't.
colors looked good together. That's fun that you used 6 fonts. And then vice versa, when you work with marketers and you're like, oh, that's really cute that you tried to use that word, but it's not the right word. And
Right.
engineers are gonna know a marketing person wrote this. And it's no shame on being non-technical. It's just like you have to know your audience. You have to know who you're talking to and what's
It's
going on.
it's like when you go on to like job listings, and then you can clearly see that someone who's not technical wrote this
Yeah,
job
like
description.
25 years of Docker. Like, okay,
Yeah,
good
it's
luck.
like just like an entire Word doc of like things that you need to know, and it's like you don't even know what you want, right? It's that
And
kind of.
I empathize because I was a recruiter and like, back in those times, back in 2013 or whatever, if somebody sent me a bunch of tech jargon, I would have just copied and pasted it over.
Absolutely.
But it's huge when you're marketing to developers, you don't want to come off like you don't know what you're talking about. Travis CI, like this stuff is important. Like when my boyfriend explained this to me, he's like, "Do you see this weird thing that Travis CI posted?" I was like, "No," and he's like, "The font's weird," and I was like, "Count me in. I need to see it. I need to see it." And I think that's like the more that you can kind of be, and I think that's why a lot of people follow you, Gwen, and probably follow me as well. Is we're very, we take ourselves seriously, obviously, when it comes to our career, but we're also able to like poke fun at things in the industry, and like there's an authenticity to like being able to speak to these things, having worked in the field, that like hiring. I think there's a lot of people who are like, I don't understand why advocacy exists. And it's like, well, have you ever tried to have a marketer write material for a technical audience, and have you ever had an engineer just try to take over marketing on the team? It's not pretty often. I mean, sometimes there's some talented people who do it, but yeah.
Definitely. I like where we're at because we don't have to be, though we are technical, we don't have to be like so strict about it. And though we're clever when it comes to like utilizing social media and things like that, we don't have to take like, oh, SEO and metrics like too seriously. Like we're in a nice like balance and there. Someone says I really dislike when recruiters are just asking checklists of things they don't know. Yeah, it comes
Yeah,
off like
unfortunately, they just like don't have the. I mean, I didn't have the knowledge of it. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's tough because and that really a lot of that responsibility, lands on the hiring manager. And oh my gosh, I'm gonna get on my soapbox for a second, y'all. If I don't care where you're working, if you're working at IBM, if you're working at a small startup, a large startup, it is so important to go through the flow and the process of what a candidate has to go through to apply to your company. The example I love to give is I worked at a company once where I tried to refer someone and they literally could not apply for the job because the drop down menu only had technical roles for like previous or for I should say for the degree. And like how many engineers do we know, Glenn, who have a degree that isn't computer science, right? Or isn't a technical degree. Like we have so many amazing people who work here at Microsoft who aren't just boot camp grads, who are self-taught even.
yeah,
And
no
my
degree.
friend couldn't apply for this role at a company that I worked at. So it was obvious that they hired people without technical degrees because it wasn't an option for her when she went to go do it. So oftentimes like recruiters are just kind of like doing whatever has been told. So like educating your recruiters and being like, hey, we're open to this type of candidate, or like actually this says 5 years, but we're interested in like, some experience in this. That's super important to making sure you get, a diverse set of candidates through your door.
Here's something that made me laugh. There's a great guy on Twitter that puts a load of Pokemon names and his skills on his CV and gets recruiters to get Twitch to switch.
Oh my gosh, I wish that LinkedIn still had that feature where you could endorse people for skills.
For anything.
I would totally endorse you for Geodude, Glenn.
5 years in
Uh,
Geo, dude.
yeah, it's been, I think that's been one of the most interesting parts of like coming into tech is, I worked in some of these non-technical roles. So I feel often I can empathize quite a bit with like the office managers and the recruiters of the world. And like, that was another thing. If anybody out there is looking to get into advocacy, I sold myself a lot of ways with that non-traditional background because, for example, I applied to Envoy, which is if you've ever been to a in-person office here in the Bay Area, they have this iPad app where you can sign in and sign the NDA, and it all gets uploaded into a CSV file. And I used this product as an office manager when I worked at PAX. Like I knew all the back end flow, and their users were all office managers and HR people. So one of the ways I sold myself for this interview was like, look, I know I'm not the most technical candidate. I was like fresh out of a boot camp. I was very junior, but I was like, however, I'm probably the only engineer you're going to interview who's actually used your product like as a real person in the
Yeah.
field. And I
Yeah.
think that's what
So
got
you
me
have
my
good
on-site
insight.
interview.
Uh-huh.
Because I was like, you're going to talk to a bunch of engineers who have all these assumptions, but I've actually experienced the pain points of your app, and I can, I didn't get the job, but I totally, that was one of those whiteboarding interviews where I was like, I know I'm not going to get this, but I'm learning a lot from this whiteboarding interview.
I feel like we could do an entire episode around just interviewing experiences because I have like so many, and I also have some like nightmare experiences. Like I went through interviewed with this company, this large music streaming company, and I think the whole process was like 6 weeks, and then during the process it was like, oh, the recruiter got switched, and then it got switched back, and then I didn't hear back for 2 weeks, and I kept following up, and then once I was like, I'm pulling myself from this, I don't want to like continue. They're like, no, but we want to move you to the final phase, and I'm like, well,
I'd very like to be removed from this narrative, please. Like,
yeah,
could you
I
get me
just
out
like
of this?
I'm out of this, right? And then yeah, this I feel like our whole in tech hiring is just a
I mean,
mess.
the fact that like it blew my mind once I put two and two together, and I was like, wait, like, because my boyfriend's been working in this industry forever. Like he's been coding since he's been a child in the womb. And I was like, so wait a second, you're telling me that every time that you interview and any of our friends interview, that you have to study? You can't just show your work? And they're like, well, no. And I was like, oh, why didn't anybody tell me this? Like I was like, because every interview I had before then was like, I'm a nice person. Here's my resume, and as long as you don't like, tell them something rude in the interview. If you're qualified, you get it. But I think that was the biggest like mind blowing thing for me was like, I'm sorry, leak code what? Interview cake what? Like I have to study for this. And actually, Gwen, that's a great plug slash segue into our new series that we're starting next week.
It's next week, right? Which date is it?
Next
The
Tuesday,
5th, Tuesday the 5th, right?
we are going to be starting a series. Well, our first series, so next month, October, spooky. We're going to be talking all about LinkedIn, resumes, cover letters, job interviewing. But season 2, this is exclusive. We haven't told anybody this. Is going to be all about. I think that'll be a really great time for us to share all of our horror
Our
stories
nightmares. And, yeah,
of
definitely.
interviews of Christmas past, because oh boy, do I have some interview stories. Which like it's crazy, these on-site interviews that we do and continue to do remotely in the Panera of like, okay, your on-site starts at 8 a.m., then you're gonna have lunch, and that's part of the interview too, and then you'll leave somewhere in around 3. I remember I would down espresso and just like get in the zone for like a full day, like be in the bathroom, like lean over the sink, like
You can do this. I got this.
But yeah, we're gonna start that. That'll be Tuesdays. Oh my gosh, what time
Do
is
we
it?
have a link? I know
Yeah,
it's
I
like
have
some
one.
time. It's
I have a
like,
registration page to share.
yeah, people
But
sign up.
yeah,
That's been great. We're gonna keep it casual and share our own experiences. But we have like some good stuff to share and tips.
lots of
And
anecdotes.
are we gonna have guests? Should we
I
have
mean,
guests?
probably
We should force our
eventually.
friends to help out.
I think also like it'll be very interesting because I can share my recruiter stories from the trenches of like being on the other side of the table, so to speak, of like, hey, when I look at a resume, I'm like bing bang boom, like yes, no. And I think we'll also probably dive in a lot to like, okay, do I need to make a different cover letter for each job application? Do I need to like have a different resume for
Ah,
different jobs?
mhm.
Because who among us has not seen a like I say this to my students all the time. They're like, "But I can't make a one-page resume. I have too much work experience." I'm like, "Trust me, if a very senior person at Microsoft can have a one-page resume, you
You can
can
have.
too." So a
Yeah,
lot of it will be
yeah.
like how to edit it down, how to make it like visually appealing, so it's not just in Times New Roman. We're gonna play with all these M365 template
Oh,
features
some
and
stuff
stuff.
that we found, like when we were organizing the show and show descriptions, we went sort of poking around at what things we could like use. And I'm just so blown away by the options that are actually available.
Yeah, I mean, you know me, I'm always talking about Canva. This background was made in Canva. Like Canva changed my life, and Microsoft Word has changed my life a bunch of just like how to make your resume or your cover letter or whatever you're putting out there stand out. Because like when
Mhm.
you're in a group, here I'll give you a little theater tip, y'all. So does everyone know what a headshot is? A headshot's just like a picture of you, usually like from here up.
Mhm.
And I used to like not take like I used to back in the day when I was an actress, I would like take selfie or something, right? And I noticed once I like paid money and like had a professional take my headshot that it made a really big difference because your resume and your headshot when you're an actor are the one thing that they have to go off of when you're not
Right,
in the room. And I
right.
think it's the same thing for a job, right? And this is, digitally now in this age, but then like physically back when I used to interview people at previous companies, the only thing that you have to represent you when you're not in the room to be like, hey, I'm Gwen, I'm really great and you should hire me and here's why, is that piece of paper. And if it looks like crap, I'm not going to bring you in for the role. Like, so I think a lot of people don't assign a lot of value to that, but that's really what we're going to be diving into in the series. Is just like, how can you make sure that you are at the top of the pile? What can you do to like, we'll probably have a checklist, of like, here's like the 5 things that you need to make sure you do. Who amongst us has not accidentally copied and pasted a cover letter with the wrong company name in it?
Company name.
That would happen often. As a recruiter, I would see that. Not having your contact info on your resume. Oh my goodness, we would find so many amazing candidates not know how to contact them. We will not be doxing ourselves on the stream though. We'll be being very data for that. But there's
Speaking
so
from
many little
experience.
gotchas that like engineers are super smart, but they do need some help with applying. And don't worry, we got you. That's what we're here to do. We're gonna
Yeah,
do that
I'm
for you.
excited. I'm excited for that one. That's going to be all next month, and
And tell them
then
about the song.
Slapper. We spent a whole 2-hour meeting picking the perfect intro music because we got to set the vibe. We got to make sure
Oh,
it's,
yeah.
we got the right energy going, right? Oh my goodness, that was a good meeting,
That
right?
was a good meeting. I'm gonna share, let's see if I can get it up in the next couple of minutes here. I'll share our designs, give a little exclusive, little
Um,
sneak peek to our Canva designs. But yeah, I'm super excited for it. Like, and we're just gonna have fun because it's us. It's
I like the change of pace because most of the sessions I've been doing are like extremely technical, but I've always been wanting to do more like career focused kind of things because
yes.
I feel like it's easy for you to point like, oh, go to YouTube to find this technical thing, but like, what about the career stuff? It's so easy to forget how important it is.
And that's like the number one question that I get from a lot of our MSAs. It's just
Yeah,
like, how do I? So, little exclusive, we do have a little cameo from Clippy up here
clip
for
it.
episodes. And this is our cute little animation that we made. The song slaps, as Gwen
Absolute
said.
slapper.
This is me right here, this coffee. And we got this little retro cell phone here. It's going to be, oh, I need to edit this one. It just has a giant USB device, just like a vape in the corner. But we're going to have fun. We're going
Yeah.
to learn a lot, share a lot. And I'm really excited because I love talking job interview stuff. Like, I hate interviewing, like, as an interviewee, but
Hmm.
I love talking shop about interviews because oftentimes I'll talk to someone, they're like, wait a second, so you're telling me that like people care like if I do blank? And I'm like, not only do they care, this is probably why you're not getting in the front door. Like,
Yeah, definitely. And
I'm
these
the
things that you could take for granted and like interviewing is such a stressful time of everybody's life. Like, do you remember trying to like get your first job and it's like, what can I do? What can I change? Like, why is this not working? So there's a lot of things like that that we've sort of picked up along the way and that we can
Ooh, I'll give a exclusive, a sneak peek of it, of the kind of tips you're going to hear from this series. So I worked as a recruiter for a year of my life, and my advice that I gave people in my cohort, which I still think is valid, true advice, and I would advise you to do the same thing: never apply for a job on a Friday or Monday. Here's why.
what?
Mondays, recruiters are catching it up on their inbox and everybody is applied to the job over the weekend because that's when they're doing their job applications, right? Friday, I'm telling you right now, most recruiters are doing wine down Fridays where everyone in the office has a glass of wine and it's happy hour. So like, think about time frame, like when is my application going to stand out the most? I always suggest like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to apply because that's going to go into their inbox. It's midweek, they're like
It's
caught up on their
fresh.
work. So that's my little
Ooh,
recruiter tip.
here's a tip. I've done 8 interviews this week, and spoiler, we're talking about you in the background on Teams whilst you're on camera.
Wait, what? I've done 8 interviews this week, and spoiler, we're talking about you in the background on Teams whilst you're on camera. What does that mean?
Like I think they like held 8 interviews and then they were talking about the person who they're
Oh,
interviewing in the background while they're on camera. I think that they were trying. I could be wrong. Let's
we're talking
get
about you in the background of Give me clarification, Mike. I don't know if I follow, but I believe you.
right. Super new to cloud. Love the technical talk. GPS.
Oh,
Awesome.
yay.
I feel like with advocacy, I think both of us want to have a nice balance between it's not just the tech, right? Because like you can be the most technical, but if you're not someone who like a well-rounded human being, your chances are only getting a little it's like slim. It's like, do everything you can. It's like, people skills, soft skills, and then the technical skill set too. Yeah, that was right. It's late and I'm tired. Yeah. So like, yeah, they're talking about the candidate on while they're on camera in the background and things like that. Yeah, I guess this
Oh,
whole culture of like remote interviewing is also it's like new,
yeah.
right?
Well, I'm even putting together content right now for, students and educators about like, consider what's in the background of your video. Like, I've
Oh,
seen the
absolutely.
wildest things in the background of people's videos, like bongs, like, things that shouldn't be, but people don't realize it. Actually, Ornella had a great tip. I think she was the person who told me this. She took a picture of her apartment clean so she can make it her team's background when her
Smart.
apartment's not clean. Um, I just have, let's see, I've got my highball energy drink here in my baby's first Eames chair that I bought this book for my boyfriend when he bought this chair. But I think I forget who it was, but during the pandemic, I don't remember what company it was or who it was, but someone was presenting and they ended up leaking like a feature or a product because it was like in the background on one of their shelves. So like you gotta
Oh,
think through these things. Or like there's a lot of actors who I've seen like accept Oscars or Emmys and things like that, and they'll have like a very inappropriate book behind them, and I'm like, do you know what's behind? Things like I think lighting too. I mean, like how many times? I mean, this is how my dad takes calls with me. Like, it's like the top of his head. I also just gave a presentation on virtual netiquette for our CBRE group here at Microsoft, and one of the things that I mentioned that's a huge pet peeve. Well, two things that are a pet peeve for some people: chewing on mic. A lot of people have sound issues, like auditory issues.
yeah.
So not doing that, or at least muting yourself when you do that, and also oh my gosh, what was the second one? It's oh my god, I'm totally blanking on the second one, but I'll remember it. It'll come to me. But yeah, just like these like pet peeve things that like we don't even realize. Oh, I know what it was. When you have your laptop on your lap and then it becomes like a roller coaster because like,
Oh, it's moving around.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
like and
yeah.
then you're typing and the whole thing's moving, or like, you're in the car and you're taking a call, like that can be very difficult to get your point across in a efficient
Oh
manner.
my gosh, this is sort of related, but when people take meetings in their car while they're driving, I can't. I can't. I
I
can't.
can't. I literally cannot. I have attempted to do that, and I'm like, I am too stressed taking this call. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
like why
crashed.
why are you doing this? Like yeah, no.
Look, I've got to go to Target. Okay, that's probably usually where I have taken a call from a Target parking lot, to be fair, but my car was off.
Okay.
Um, yeah, 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 yeah. Well, this has been great. I'm so excited that we did it. We're like, you know what? We should just stream. We should
We
just
should just
stream and dream.
like just chat. I like that this is sort of like behind the scenes of the stuff that we're working on, but we're also just like talking about anything really.
Yeah. Let's do
I
it
like
again. We're going to do it again. A
yeah.
collab, if you will, as all the Instagram commenters say. Want to collab?
Collab. Want to
Collab?
collab? DM us.
Yeah, me for a collab. But yeah, I think this is probably something we'll end up doing a bunch, y'all. Like, this has been such a joy to talk to everyone.
Absolutely.
What should our next topic be? Tell us in the chat. What do you want us to talk about? What AMA should we do next time? Maybe an AMA on Britney Spears. Free
Did you
Britney.
see the Netflix series? I mean, the
I
Netflix doc?
started to watch it, but then I got distracted. But I want to watch and report back. But I did see the news that Britney has been freed from her father, from the conservatorship. I should have worn my Free Britney shirt today.
I saw
Um, we love you, Brittany. Follow Brittany Bot on Twitter.
that.
Yeah, maybe next time we'll do like well, let's see. Our first episode for the jobs thing is like a jobs overview thing. So maybe we'll find a little topic in that. And we would love for you to join us live for that, y'all. If you're available Tuesday, join us. We're going to
The
be
link
talking,
is right here.
yes,
Get all the deets.
talking all about jobby jobs. That's just going to kind of be an overview day. So that one actually will probably be pretty fun because we'll probably go into like some scary stories, in the spirit of
Definitely.
Halloween and Dia de los
It's
Muertos.
spooky season.
Yeah. And I think maybe that'll be like, maybe that's how. So Gwen and I were like throwing around this idea of doing like a Halloween event and maybe sharing some like spooky developer stories. So stay tuned. Costumes mandatory,
Absolutely.
obviously. But yeah, and reach out to us on Twitter if y'all have any preguntas, questions.
Our handles are right there on the screen. Yeah, right there in blue or teal. Is that a teal? Is that a blue?
It's like a Tiffany blue. No, it's a
Okay.
little brighter than that. But yeah, and let us know if you have any like we're currently in the process of putting together season 2 for our show. So let us know if there's anything that like you want more info on. Like maybe you're like, y'all, how do I make sure that I know that I'm gonna get on my soapbox in this series about how I hate recruiting filtering software. And I have some fun stories to share about that where I would go to events and they'd be like, Chloe, we would love for you to apply for a role here. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, that's so cute. I tried applying for your company and your recruiting software literally filtered me out. To talk about stuff like that, talking about bad interviews, talking about good interviews. I have some good interview stories to share.
I have some too.
All of
Bad
the
ones,
things.
embarrassing ones. I got
You
them all.
know, I could end this stream by playing the Beep Boop song, but I won't because it's not Beep Boop, but it does slap. But next time we'll have an intro outro thing next time. That'll be our
Definitely.
plan.
All right.
Thanks y'all for joining. We're
call
gonna
it.
end this one. How should we end? Like, what should be our final parting thoughts, Gwen?
Always be streaming and dreaming.
Yeah, mine is always be streaming and dreaming and get that bread, and always negotiate. That's what I'll end on. We'll do
Love
one on
it.
negotiation soon too.
Love it.
Okay, friends, we're peacing out, but we'll see you on Twitter. We'll see you on MySpace. We'll see you on Neopets.